I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Jessica, for about 3 years now. We were supposed to get married in a few weeks. Everything seemed perfect, or at least I thought it was. Jessica always had a bit of a bitchy streak, but I liked her fire. She was smart, beautiful, successful, and honestly, I thought we were solid. Sure, she had her moments where she'd be a little flaky or dismissive, but I brushed it off, telling myself it was just her personality. Looking back now, I see the signs were there all along. I just didn't want to see them. She'd be oddly distant sometimes, texting all the time but then giving me some lame excuse about work or her best friend, Amanda. She'd cancel plans last minute, saying she was busy with work stuff or needing to focus. But whenever I'd ask what was going on, she'd lash out, call me insecure, or accuse me of overthinking. Yeah, I know, classic signs of trouble, but I didn't want to believe the worst. I was blinded by how much I loved her, how much I wanted this marriage to work. Things really started to feel weird about a month ago. Jessica started taking her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. She'd hide it when I was around, and her texts became more frequent and secretive. She'd get defensive if I asked to see her phone, brushing me off, saying I was being paranoid or that I didn't trust her. But I could tell something was up. The way she looked at her phone when she thought I wasn't paying attention, or how she'd quickly delete messages when I'd walk into the room. I felt a knot forming in my stomach, but I forced myself to ignore it. I told myself I was being insecure, that all couples go through rough patches, and I tried to stay positive. Then came the night I found the texts. I was lying in bed, trying to get some sleep, and her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally I wouldn't even look, but for some reason I glanced over. I saw a message from her best friend's husband, David. The message was just a few words, but they hit me like a punch. To the gut, can't wait to see you tonight. It's time we finally put everything on the table and run away together. I froze. My mind was racing. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife Jessica, her best friend Amanda's husband, plotting to run away together. That couldn't be real. I stared at the phone for what felt like forever, trying to process the gut-wrenching reality that this wasn't some joke or misunderstanding. I felt sick. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might explode. How long had this been going on? Were they really planning to leave me just like that? I couldn't sleep after that. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying the message over and over. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was the realization that Jessica had been lying to me this entire time. She'd been sneaky, manipulative, and outright dishonest. I'd always thought she was a little bitchy, sure, but this was something else. It was like finding out the woman I loved and trusted had been cheating, not just on me, but conspiring with her best friend's husband to take away everything I had built with her. I didn't confront her that night. I needed time to think, but I knew I couldn't ignore it, not anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a train. My stomach was twisted in knots. I had to see her, to hear her explain herself, even if I already knew what her excuse was going to be. I just wanted to see if she'd lie her way out of it, like she always did when she got caught in little lies before. Maybe I was hoping she'd admit it outright, or maybe I was just too damn naive to believe this was real. She was in the kitchen making coffee, acting like everything was normal. That's when I saw her phone on the counter face down. I hesitated for a second, then just snatched it up. The messages from David were still there, more texts from her, talking about clandestine meetups, plans to escape, even some flirtatious talk about what they'd do when it was just the two of them. It was all in black and white. I looked at her, trying to keep my voice calm, but inside I was boiling over. "Jessica," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "what the hell is this?" Her face changed instantly. Her eyes went wide and she started to stammer, acting innocent, saying she didn't know what I was talking about, that it was all just some stupid joke, or that I must have misunderstood. She kept lying, spinning stories about how she was stressed, how it was just harmless fun, that David was just a friend and nothing more. Her words were quick, dismissive, like she thought she could wave it all away with a few excuses. But I wasn't buying it. I saw the truth behind her eyes, the guilty look, the defensive posture. She knew I'd seen everything. My world was crashing down in that moment. I felt everything: anger, betrayal, sadness, confusion, all at once. I didn't know what to say, what to do. I just kept staring at her, my mind racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Had she been lying to me all this time? Did she ever love me? Or was I just some placeholder while she plotted her escape? She kept insisting. It was just sexless flirting, that she loved me and was just overwhelmed with wedding planning. Yeah, sure, that's what she told me. It didn't matter what she said after that. I knew the truth, and I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. After I saw those messages, everything shifted. I felt like I was in a fog, like my entire reality had just been ripped out from under me. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, to break something, but I couldn't move. My hands were trembling and my mind was racing a mile a minute. I needed to process what I just found out. She kept pleading, trying to spin some bullshit about how it was just sex, how it meant nothing, how she was stressed and overwhelmed, that she loved me and this was just a mistake. I looked her dead in the eyes and told her I didn't believe a word she said, that I knew she had been lying to me all along, that she had been sneaking around, talking to David behind my back, planning to run away with him and her best friend's husband. Her face contorted with anger, then with panic. She started yelling, calling me paranoid, accusing me of overreacting, of not trusting her. That was her go-to move: deflect, deny, blame me for everything. She even said I was jealous and insecure, trying to make me feel like I was the crazy one. But I wasn't having any of it. I couldn't. The pain hit me like a ton of bricks. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, especially right before our wedding? It felt like my world was shattering into pieces. I was supposed to be marrying her in a few weeks, planning our future, imagining a life together. And now, I was staring at the possibility that she'd been cheating on me for who knows how long, with her best friend's husband no less. My mind raced with all the moments I'd shared with her, those nights of pretending everything was fine, the promises, the laughs, and then this betrayal. I remember feeling this overwhelming mix of anger and sadness. I wanted to scream at her, call her every name in the book, tell her how worthless she was, how disgusting her lies were. But I also felt this deep, aching sadness, like I was mourning a person I no longer recognized. It was the kind of pain that makes you question everything. Was I ever really loved? Did she ever care? Or was I just some placeholder for her to use until something better came along? All these thoughts flooded me, and I just stood there, silent, trying not to lose control. Then she did something I didn't expect. She broke down crying, tears streaming down her face, begging me to believe her, to forgive her, saying she'd never do it again, that she was just overwhelmed, that it was a mistake she'd regret forever. She looked so genuine, so desperate, that part of me wanted to believe her. But I couldn't, not after seeing those messages. I knew she was lying, trying to manipulate me. It made me even angrier. How could she be so callous, so selfish? She had been lying to me, betraying me, and now she was crying like it was all some terrible accident. I told her to leave, just get out of the house. I couldn't look at her anymore. I needed space, time, whatever was left of my dignity. She kept insisting, saying she loved me, that she'd never hurt me intentionally, that it was just a stupid mistake. But I was done listening. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The betrayal was too much to process in that moment. I wanted to believe she was genuinely sorry, but deep down, I knew she was lying. Her tears, her pleas, they all felt like a desperate attempt to save herself, to keep me from walking away. That night I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do next. I felt numb, hollow, like I'd lost a part of myself. How do you move on from something like this? How do you forgive someone who's betrayed you so completely? I didn't have an answer. I kept thinking about all the times she'd lied, all the moments I'd missed, all the signs I ignored. I felt so stupid for not seeing it sooner. But I also felt furious. Furious at her for cheating, furious at myself for not catching it earlier, and furious at the whole situation for ripping my life apart. In the days that followed, I tried to keep it together. I'd lie awake at night, replaying everything in my head, every smile she gave me, every lie she told, every secret she kept. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see it coming. The heartbreak was overwhelming. I felt betrayed not just by her but by the idea of what I thought we had. I kept asking myself if I should fight for her, if she deserved a second chance, or if I should just cut my losses and walk away. Honestly, I didn't know what was worse, the pain of betrayal or the shame of feeling so naive. I finally decided that I needed to confront her again, face to face, to get some closure. But I knew I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I'd heard enough lies. I was tired of her spinning stories, tired of her fake tears. I wanted to hear her admit the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Because at the end of the day, I had to decide what was best for me. I didn't want a marriage built on lies and deception. I wanted honesty, even if it meant facing the ugly truth. Head on. The confrontation I had with Jessica after her breakdown didn't go quite the way I imagined. I thought she would be begging, pleading, maybe even crying more, trying to convince me she was sorry, that it was just a terrible mistake. But no, Jessica has always been good at spinning stories and hiding her true feelings behind a mask. When I told her to leave, she looked at me like I was the one who was overreacting. She didn't seem remotely sorry, just annoyed that I was making her feel guilty. She started with her usual bullshit. "Mike, you're being paranoid. I love you. I don't know what you saw, but you're twisting things. That message from David. It was just some stupid joke. We were just joking around, pretending to be planning something crazy, and you took it seriously. Honestly, I think you're just jealous because I'm busy with wedding stuff and I don't have time for your insecurities." She kept trying to brush it off, acting like I was overreacting. Like I was the one who was crazy for doubting her. I looked straight at her and said, "Jessica, you're lying. I saw the messages. You're planning to run away with David. I know what's going on. How long has this been happening? Did you ever really love me?" She rolled her eyes, scoffing like my questions were so inconvenient she couldn't be bothered. Her answer, "Mike, you're making a huge deal out of nothing. We're just friends. David's married, for God's sake. This is all just stupid gossip you're imagining in your head. I swear I love you and I want to marry you. You're just stressed out, that's all." I felt my stomach tight. That was her classic move: deny, dismiss, blame me. She'd always been good at twisting things around to make herself look innocent, but I wasn't buying it anymore. My mind was racing. If she was lying about this, what else was she hiding? I felt this surge of anger and disappointment wash over me. How could she lie so easily? How could she be so manipulative? Then she started to get defensive, raising her voice. "You don't trust me, after all these years. Maybe you're the one with problems, not me. Maybe I should be the one questioning you. What are you hiding, Mike? Are you cheating on me too?" That made my blood boil. I was so furious I could hardly see straight. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her she was the worst kind of liar, but I held back. I knew that would only make things worse. Instead, I just said, "You're disgusting. I don't even know who you are anymore." She shot back with more accusations, trying to turn the tables. She called me insecure, said I was jealous of David, that I was just trying to control her, that she'd never cheat on me, that I was imagining things. It was all bullshit and I knew it. I'd seen the messages. I'd read her words. She was planning her escape and she didn't care who she hurt in the process. That's when I decided I had to get out of there before I lost my mind. I told her she needed to leave, that I wasn't going to be around her anymore. I didn't want her in my house, in my life, while she was plotting her betrayal. She kept arguing, trying to guilt trip me, but I was done. I couldn't even look at her, not after what I'd seen. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Once she was gone, I sat there, staring at the walls, trying to make sense of what just happened. I felt numb, like I was in shock. My mind kept flashing back to the messages, to her lies, to the fact that I had almost married someone who'd been secretly planning to run away with her best friend's husband. It was surreal. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I missed all the signs. And the worst part, I kept wondering if I was just some fool for trusting her in the first place. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything: her lies, her tears, her fake apologies. I kept asking myself if I should forgive her, if there was any way this could be fixed. But deep down, I knew the truth. Once you're betrayed like that, everything changes. Trust is broken beyond repair. And even if she somehow convinced me to stay, I'd always wonder when she'd be lying again. I felt betrayed, heartbroken, angry, and confused all at once. I'd never felt so lost. in my life. I didn't want to believe that the woman I loved and was planning to marry was capable of all this, but I knew I couldn't ignore what I'd seen. The scars of that discovery will stay with me forever. I learned that sometimes the people you think you know best are the ones hiding the biggest secrets, and that trusting blindly can cost you everything. In the days that followed, I tried to piece my life back together, but it was like trying to put together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Every time I thought I had a handle on things, something would remind me of her or that damn message from David. I was angry at myself for not catching this sooner, for not seeing how manipulative she'd been. I kept asking myself if I was just too blind or too naive, and honestly, I felt like I'd been played for a fool. Jessica, of course, kept trying to contact me texts, calls, even messages through her friends. She'd send "I'm sorry, please talk to me, and I love you" like she could wave a magic wand and undo everything. But I wasn't interested in her apologies. I felt nothing but disgust. I didn't want her fake tears, her manipulative pleas. I told her I needed space. Hell, I needed a complete break from her. I wasn't ready to see her, hear her, or even think about her. My mind was a mess, and I needed to sort through it all without her in the picture. One night, I finally sat down and started thinking about what I wanted, really wanted, out of this mess. I realized I wasn't going to forgive her. Not easily, not after what I'd seen. Trust was shattered. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to tell her exactly how betrayed I felt, but what was the point? She'd already lied her way through everything. I knew she was a liar, a manipulator, and honestly, I didn't see any way back from this. I also thought about the future. Could I forgive her someday? Maybe. But not now. Not after an affair with her best friend's husband, right before our wedding, no less. That kind of betrayal doesn't just go away. It leaves scars, deep ones. I kept remembering how she'd lied, minimized, and even gaslighted me to get what she wanted. That moment when I found her crying, pretending she was the victim, that's when I knew I had to cut her out of my life for good. So I made the decision. I was going to file for divorce. I couldn't stay married to someone so dishonest, so manipulative. I wanted to rebuild my life, even if it meant starting from scratch. It wasn't easy. I felt like I was walking through a fog, wondering if I'd ever trust anyone again. But I knew I had to do it for my own sanity, for my own self-respect. I deserved better than someone who would betray me so completely. I also reached out to Amanda, Jessica's best friend. I needed to hear her side, to see if she knew about this or if she was just as blindsided as I'd been. Turns out, Amanda had no idea about David and Jessica's plans. She was just as shocked when she found out, and she was furious at her husband for being so reckless. That made me feel a little better, knowing I wasn't the only one blindsided by Jessica's lies. But it did change the fact that I'd been betrayed by the woman I loved. Throughout all this, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, even in the face of heartbreak. I also learned that some people are just incapable of honesty and loyalty. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair, and that sometimes you have to walk away from someone you love to save yourself. I don't hate Jessica, not yet. But I do feel a deep disappointment, and I'm still trying to process all the rage and sadness inside me. In the end, I realized that revenge isn't about retaliation, it's about reclaiming your dignity. I decided to move on, to focus on myself, and to never let someone's lies define me. I know it's going to take time, but I'm slowly starting to see a way forward. I don't want to walk through life carrying this betrayal forever, but I also don't want to forget what it taught me. Be careful who you trust. Sometimes, love can turn into the biggest lie of all. As the weeks turned into a month, I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The initial shock and anger had subsided somewhat, but underneath, there was a persistent ache that wouldn't go away. I threw myself into work, trying to keep busy, but every little thing reminded me of Jessica. The way she used to laugh at her phone, the way she'd brush her hair back when she was lying about something, those small habits haunted me. I kept asking myself, how could someone I loved so much turn into this stranger? How could she lie so effortlessly, do what she did, and then pretend it was all just a mistake? I started to realize that a lot of the pain wasn't just about her betrayal. It was about my own sense of betrayal, of trusting someone so completely and having that trust shattered. I'd always been a straightforward guy, the kind who believed in honesty and loyalty. But now I wondered how much of that was just naive optimism. Jessica had shown me she cared more about her own needs than about us, and that realization stung worse than anything else. I also faced the practical side of things. I talked to a lawyer, started figuring out what my options were. The idea of divorce was already on the table, but I wanted to make sure I was protecting myself legally and financially. Honestly, I didn't care much about money or possessions anymore. I just wanted to walk away with my dignity intact. It was a brutal process. There were moments I wanted to call her, to tell her I missed her, to hear her voice and maybe believe her apologies again. But I knew that doing so would be a mistake. She'd already shown me who she was. Meanwhile, Jessica was relentless in her attempts to contact me. She'd leave messages, some desperate, some angry, trying to guilt-trip me into giving her another chance. She'd say she was sorry, that she'd do anything to fix this, that she loved me and that she'd change. But I didn't buy it. Not anymore. I knew her too well. That girl was a master manipulator, and I wasn't falling for her lies again. Every message from her felt like a reminder of how badly I'd been betrayed, and I refused to go back. One thing I did do was set some boundaries. I blocked her number, removed her from my social media. I needed space to breathe, to analyze what I wanted. I knew I was angry, but underneath that was also a deep sadness, like I'd lost a part of myself. I started seeing a therapist, honestly. I needed help sorting through all these feelings, this heartbreak, this betrayal. It was the first time I ever really opened up about how I felt, and honestly, it helped more than I expected. Maybe it was the only thing keeping me sane some days. I also reached out to Amanda, hoping for some clarity. Turns out she was as blindsided as I was. She had no idea David and Jessica planned to run away together, or that they'd been hiding this for so long. She was furious at her husband, just as betrayed as I was. That made me feel a little less crazy, knowing I wasn't the only one taken for a fool. But it also made me realize how deep Jessica's lies ran. She was capable of hiding her true self from everyone, even her closest friends. It was around this time that I started to accept that I might never get the closure I wanted. Jessica kept trying to reach out, but I kept my distance. I knew that forgiveness wasn't something I could force, and trust was something I'd never get back from her. I learned that sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away and rebuild your life on your terms. I didn't want to carry her betrayal around anymore. I wanted to move on, even if it felt impossible at times. Every day, I reminded myself that I deserved better, that I shouldn't settle for someone who would lie, cheat, and manipulate. I started to see my future differently, not with her but without her. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and I'd probably carry the scars for a long time, but I also knew I had to focus on healing and growing stronger. The pain was real, but so was the realization that I was better off without her. I'd learned the hard way that trusting blindly only sets you up for heartbreak, and I vowed to never let anyone do that to me again. My life now was about reclaiming what I'd lost and making sure I never let someone's betrayal define me. By the time I reached the point of full acceptance, I knew I had come a long way from that initial shock. The pain hadn't completely disappeared, but it had softened into something more manageable, a hard-earned lesson about trust and vulnerability. I started to see my future not as a continuation of the betrayal, but as a clean slate I could rebuild on my own terms. The anger still lingered sometimes, but I was learning to channel it into strength, into making smarter choices about who I let into my life. Jessica's attempts to reach me finally faded. I didn't reply anymore. I think she realized that her manipulations and crocodile tears no longer worked. I saw her for what she truly was, a selfish, dishonest woman who'd thrown away everything we had for some fleeting thrill. And honestly, I felt relieved. Deep down, I knew I was better off without her, even if the pain of losing what I thought was my forever still stung. Looking back, I can say I learned a lot from this experience. I learned that love isn't enough, trust is everything, and once that trust is broken, It's almost impossible to repair. I learned that some people are just incapable of loyalty, no matter how much you want to believe they're different. And I learned that the most important thing you can do is prioritize yourself, your mental health, your dignity, your happiness. Because if you don't, someone else will take it all away and you'll be left picking up the pieces. Now I focus on myself. I've started new hobbies, reconnected with friends I had pushed aside, and even started dating again. I don't rush it, I take my time because I know what kind of person I want now. Someone who's honest, who respects me, who values loyalty. The scars of betrayal will always be there, but they serve as a reminder to be more cautious, more aware. Sometimes I think about Jessica and what could have been. Maybe she was never the person I thought she was. Maybe I was naive to see her as perfect. But I've come to accept that some chapters in life are for closing, no matter how painful. I won't carry her betrayal forever. I won't let her define my happiness. I've learned that life moves on, sometimes in unexpected ways, and that the best revenge is simply moving forward, stronger, wiser, and more guarded, but still open to love. In the end, I realize that betrayal, while devastating, can teach you what truly matters. It pushes you to grow, to rebuild, and to find out who you really are. I've lost someone I thought loved me, but I've gained a renewed sense of self-worth. And that's something no one can ever take away.